Before you scrape that little mud tube off your wall, you should know something disturbing. It might not be dirt, it might be a sealed nursery full of paralyzed spiders. I know, lovely. You thought it was just an ugly mud blob stuck to your porch, garage, fence, or the side of the house, something you could scrape off with a spatula and feel productive for about 4 seconds. But inside that strange little tube, there may be a baby wasp waiting to hatch, surrounded by spiders that were hunted, stung, packed away, and then sealed inside like the world's worst lunchbox. And here's the creepy part. Those spiders may not have been killed first. They may have been paralyzed. Still there, still stored, still meant to become food. So that thing on your wall is not just a bit of mess. It is a nursery, a pantry, and a tiny mud prison built by one of the most misunderstood wasps around your home. But before you panic and decide your house has become a horror movie with better plumbing, there is something you need to know. The wasp that built it is probably not the kind of wasp you're afraid of. It is not gathering an angry army. It is not planning to chase you around the backyard. And it may actually be hunting the spiders you would much rather not have hiding near your garage, porch, shed, or roofline. So before you grab the scraper, the hose, or whatever tool makes you feel brave, here are 5 reasons to never scrape this off your wall. Because what is living inside may be doing more for your home than you think. Number 1, it was built by a wasp that is not like the wasps you fear. The first thing you need to know is this: that mud tube on your wall was not built by a random insect having a bad arts and crafts day. It was most likely built by a mud dauber. And yes, a mud dauber is a wasp. I know, that word does not help. The second people hear wasp, they imagine something angry, striped, and personally offended by picnics. You think of yellow jackets swarming around food, paper wasps guarding a nest like tiny security guards with wings, hornets acting like they pay council rates on your backyard. But mud daubers are different. They are solitary wasps. That means they do not live in a big angry colony. They do not have a queen sitting inside issuing dramatic wasp orders. They do not have hundreds of sisters waiting to pour out of the nest because you walked too close. With a watering can, a mud dauber usually works alone. She builds alone, she hunts alone, she seals the nest alone, and most of the time she wants absolutely nothing to do with you. Her whole focus is that mud tube, not your sandwich, not your lemonade, not your face. The reason people get this wrong is because the nest looks suspicious. Anything stuck to your wall that looks like dried mud sausages is going to raise questions. But the mud dauber is not building a wasp apartment block full of angry residents. She is building something much stranger, a tiny sealed chamber for the next generation. And once you understand that, the whole thing becomes less like a wasp problem and more like one of the weirdest little construction projects happening on your property. So before you scrape it off just because the word wasp makes your soul leave your body, remember this: not every wasp is looking for a fight. Some are just single mothers with mud, spiders, and a very unsettling plan. And if that already made you look at that ugly little mud tube differently, hit the like button and subscribe, because this channel is all about the strange little things people destroy before they understand what they actually are. Now let's get to the part that makes this whole thing even creepier. Number 2, that mud tube is not a home. It is a sealed nursery. This is where most people misunderstand the mud nest completely, because when you see it stuck to a wall, porch, shed, garage, or roofline, it looks like a little wasp house, like there should be a tiny wasp inside with a couch, a kettle, and absolutely no respect for your property. But that is not what it is. The mud dauber usually does not live in that tube. She builds it for something else, her babies. That ugly little mud pipe is not her bedroom. It is a sealed nursery, and not the cute kind with painted clouds on the wall. This is the type of nursery where the mother builds a chamber, stocks it with food, lays an egg, seals the door, and leaves the baby to hatch inside with everything it needs, which sounds organized until you find out what the food is, because the mud dauber is not packing baby food jars in there. She is packing spiders. That is why scraping it off too soon is not just removing a bit of dirt. You may be breaking open a tiny mud-built chamber that was carefully made, filled, sealed, and then left to finish a process that was already happening on your wall. And the strangest part is the wasp that built it may never even see her young. She does the work, she builds the tube, she hunts the food, she seals it shut, then she moves on. So that little mud mark you were about to scrape off is not random mess. It is a one wasp construction project, a nursery and a locked pantry all stuck to your wall, like nature decided to build something deeply unsettling right next to your front door. Number 3, What is inside can look like a tiny horror movie. This is the part where the mud tube stops looking like a harmless blob on the wall, because inside that sealed chamber, there may be spiders, not one, not two, sometimes several, packed inside like the world's worst snack drawer. And here's where it gets properly unsettling. The mud dauber does not always kill the spider before putting it in there. She can sting it in a way that paralyzes it, so the spider cannot run, it cannot fight, it cannot escape, but it can stay fresh long enough for the baby wasp to hatch and feed, which is horrifying, but also weirdly brilliant. The mud dauber is not just throwing random bugs into a hole and hoping for the best. She is building a sealed food supply for a baby she may never meet. She hunts the spider, stings it, carries it back, pushes it inside the mud tube, then goes out and does it again and again until the chamber is stocked. Then she lays an egg, seals the opening with mud, and leaves the whole thing to continue behind that little brown lump on your wall. So when you scrape one open, you might not just find dirt. You might find a tiny sealed room full of spiders that were collected, stored, and left there for a larva that has not even hatched yet. Lovely little wall decoration, really. A nursery on the outside, a spider freezer on the inside. And the reason that matters is because this is not random mess. It is a very specific process. Gross, yes. Clever, absolutely. And once you know what is happening inside, that little mud tube becomes much harder to look at the same way again. Number 4, some mud daubers hunt the spiders you really do not want nearby. This is where the mud dauber goes from gross to strangely useful, because those spiders inside the mud tube are not just there for shock value. They are proof that something has been hunting around your property. And depending on the mud dauber, some of those spiders may be the exact kind you would rather not find in your garage, shed, porch, roofline, or dark little corner where nobody wants to put their hand. Some mud daubers hunt all kinds of spiders. Small spiders, web building spiders, orb weavers, jumping spiders, and sometimes spiders with a much worse reputation, like black widows. Now, that does not mean every mud dauber nest is packed with dangerous spiders. It depends on the species, the area, and what is available nearby. But the fact that some mud daubers can target spiders people genuinely worry about makes that ugly little mud tube look very different. Because while you are looking at it thinking, that needs to come off the wall, the wasp may have been searching the cracks, corners, beams, sheds, garages, and hidden spaces where spiders actually live. Places you do not check every day. Places sprays do not always reach. Places that only become interesting when you suddenly see 8 legs disappear behind a box. The mud dauber is not just flying around for fun. She is hunting. She finds spiders, stings them, carries them back, and stores them away for her young. Which means that mud nest on your wall may be connected to a whole spider hunt you never saw happening. And honestly, that is the part people miss. The nest looks like the problem because it is visible, but the spiders she was finding may have been the real reason she was there. So before you scrape it off just because it looks ugly, remember this: that mud tube might be the receipt. And the spiders inside might show you what the wasp has already removed from places you probably were not checking. Number 5, scraping it off too soon can turn one ugly mud tube into a bigger mess. This is where people make the mistake. They see the mud nest, grab a scraper, and think, I'll just get rid of that. Simple. Except if the nest is active, you may not be scraping off an empty bit of dirt. You may be cracking open a sealed chamber halfway through the job. And inside could be mud, larvae, old egg chambers, bits of web, and spiders that were packed in there for a reason. So instead of removing a neat little tube from the wall, you may end up opening nature's worst surprise packet. Not exactly the satisfying cleanup moment you pictured. That is why timing matters. An active mud dauber nest is not just a stain. It is a process still happening. The wasp may still be building, the chamber may still be stocked, the larva may still be developing inside. So scraping it off too early is like ripping open a lunchbox before you know what someone packed. And with mud daubers, what they packed may have 8 legs. So if the nest is not in a dangerous spot, the smarter move is usually to leave it alone until the season is over. Because sometimes the grossest thing you can do is not leaving it there. It is opening it too soon. So before you scrape that mud tube off your wall, remember what it might actually be. Not dirt, not random mess, not the start of a wasp army. It may be a sealed nursery packed with spiders, built by a wasp that is far less interested in you than the things hiding around your home. So if it is not in a dangerous spot and it is not causing a real problem, maybe leave it long enough to finish what it started. Because sometimes the ugliest little thing on your wall is not the problem. It is the thing dealing with one. And if this video made you look at mud dauber nests differently, hit the like button. Tell me in the comments if you have ever found one. and subscribe for more strange things people destroy before they understand what is actually going on inside.